Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take the sources you send us, dig into them, and basically pull out the key insights for you.
Yeah, it's about getting you up to speed efficiently, cutting through the noise.
Exactly. So today we're looking at a story one of you shared. It's about Alberto, a cybersecurity guy in Montevideo.
Right, and he gets contacted by this mysterious group. They call themselves La Llama Violeta, the Violet Flame.
Sounds intriguing already. And the source is what? A chapter from a fictional narrative?
That's right. It's pretty descriptive, lots of dialogue, gives you a real feel for the situation.
Okay, so our mission here is to unpack Alberto's first brush with these people. What are their methods like? What are they actually trying to achieve?
And crucially, what's the big decision Alberto is facing? There's coded messages, shadowy meetings. It's got all the ingredients.
Definitely high stakes. So let's dive in. Where does it start, the initial contact?
It starts with Alberto having to jump through quite a few hoops just to get to the meeting place. The narrative really emphasizes how careful he had to be.
How so? What did he actually do?
Well, it describes this whole, carefully choreographed dance, using public transport, specific routes, waiting at certain points, constantly watching.
Counter surveillance. Standard stuff, but sounds like it was done properly.
Very. And then there's this coded signal he gets over public Wi-Fi, on a burner phone, apparently.
Okay, so untraceable comms.
Right. And after that, he deliberately doubles back through the Mercado Agricola, the main market, just to be sure he wasn't followed.
Wow. Okay, so they're serious. What was Alberto's take on all this? He knows his stuff, right? Runs that podcast, Cyber Midnight Club.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what's interesting. He found their professionalism, their operational security. Well, the word used is chillingly impressive.
Chillingly impressive.
Yeah. He apparently compares it to activist groups he's researched. And this group, La Llama Violeta, was leagues ahead. That tells you something straight away.
Yeah, it certainly sets a tone. These aren't amateurs.
Not at all. They seem highly organized, very disciplined. And Alberto, because of his own background, cybersecurity work, and his book mentions past run-ins with the justice system.
Operation Bitcoins. Log into hell. Quite the title.
Right. So he's naturally wary. He's got his guard up. He's not going to be easily fooled or intimidated.
Okay, so he goes through all that. Where does he actually end up meeting them or trying to meet them?
The meeting point itself is pretty low-key. An ordinary cafe called El Refugio.
The Refuge. A bit on the nose, maybe.
Yeah, the narrative points out the irony. So the instructions were clear. Find someone with a Violet accent, but don't approach them. Just wait.
So he sits down, orders a coffee, or cortado, it says, and just watches.
Pretty much. Heightened senses, scanning the room. Very tense.
Then what happens? How do they make contact?
Well, this woman comes in, described as, pretty unremarkable looking, blends in. But there's something about her posture, the way she quickly scans the room. Alberto clocks it.
Subtle cues.
Very subtle. And the clincher is this violet ribbon she is tucked into a poetry book she's carrying. That's the signal.
Okay, clever. Low profile. No big obvious signs.
Exactly. And even then, there's no, direct interaction yet. She orders a water, sits for a bit, then just gets up and leaves.
And walks past his table?
Passes his table. They exchange just a quick glance, no words. Then he waits, exactly 1 minute, just as instructed, before getting up to follow her, keeping his distance.
This is proper tradecraft. Very meticulous.
It really is.
Yeah.
So he follows her, maintaining that distance through these quiet residential streets.
Away from the main bustle.
Right. And they end up at this slightly dilapidated 2-story building. Looks like there was maybe a print shop on the ground floor, but it's all shuttered up.
And the entrance.
Just a single, very ordinary door leading upstairs. That's presumably where they're based.
Okay, so this is the moment, right? Going from a public space to behind closed doors.
Absolutely. The narrative really plays up this feeling for Alberto, like it's a point of no return.
I can imagine. He must be thinking, what am I getting into?
Totally. There's this internal conflict. Part of him wants to just walk away, especially thinking about, whatever happened that led to his book. The links are obvious. Right. But there's also his curiosity. And this phrase comes up, his personal belief. Human knowledge belongs to the world. Like a sense of obligation, maybe? It's pulling him in.
That's a powerful motivator. So he goes in.
He goes in.
Yeah.
And inside, it's not what you'd expect from the outside.
How so?
It's described as this chaotic masterpiece, a total jungle of technology. Wires everywhere, mismatched computers, custom server racks.
Sounds like a hacker den cliche almost.
A bit, but maybe more.
Mm.
Functional chaos. There are whiteboards covered in network diagrams, lists of targets, bits of code. It's intense.
And the narrative contrasts this with his own neat, organized office.
Yeah, exactly. To highlight the difference in style. This place is raw, focused energy. All about the mission.
So who's actually there? Who are the members of La Llama Violeta?
We get introduced to the core team. First, there's Sophia. She's the one who actually reached out to Alberto initially.
Okay, what's she like?
Calm, collected, seems very sharp. She's sort of the coordinator, it seems.
Got it. Who else?
Then there's Mateo. He's described as more energetic. His specialty is human-to-human interfaces and network reconnaissance.
Human interfaces.
And he's right.
So social engineering, talking his way into places, maybe online. And recon, scouting out networks.
Sounds like it. And there's a funny moment where Mateo mentions he's actually a fan of Alberto's podcast.
Ah, that must have been weird. Breaks the tension a bit, maybe.
Yeah, adds a strange, slightly surreal layer to it all.
Well, okay, Sophia the coordinator, Mateo the energetic tech social guy. Anyone else?
One more key figure, Elena. She's presented as more serious. The strategist, researcher, and the keeper of her conscience is how they put it.
Keeper of their conscience. Interesting title.
Yeah, it suggests she brings maybe a more ethical or long-term perspective. The narrative hints she has some heavy personal history, too. Gives her this appraising, watchful quality.
Okay, so that's the team. Now the big question, what are they actually doing? What's their mission?
Right. So Sophia lays it out. And it's important they're not trying to, bring down the whole government or anything.
So no revolution planned.
No. Their goal is much more focused. They want to expose specific, deep-seated corruption, particularly within certain government agencies and big corporations in Uruguay.
Corruption related to?
Specifically related to the water crisis there and environmental issues. They mentioned targeting people in the Ministry of Environment, a big agro-industrial company.
The narrative mentions the UPM pulp mill issue context, right? That's a major ongoing thing in Uruguay.
Exactly. That gives it real-world grounding. And also people within the state water company. So very specific targets.
Which implies they've done their homework already.
A lot of it, yeah. It's not just a vague ambition. They have names, entities in mind.
So how do they plan to expose this? What are their methods? We know Mateo does recon and human interfaces.
Right. And Elena, the strategist, focuses on digging through publicly available information. Open source intelligence, basically. Connecting the dots that are already out there, but maybe hidden in plain sight.
Okay, so research combined with Mateo's probing. What about Sophia?
Sophia's the technical one. She identifies the digital weaknesses in their targets' systems.
Like what kind of weaknesses?
Well, she mentions things like outdated software, which is a classic vulnerability, potential SQL injection points.
Ah, SQL injection. That's a way to mess with databases, right? Get access you shouldn't have.
Exactly. It exploits vulnerabilities in how websites talk to their databases. And also things like lax access controls, basically. Poor security hygiene.
Common problems, but potentially devastating if exploited.
For sure. And their ultimate aim is to get irrefutable proof.
What does that look like?
Things like internal emails, private memos, financial transactions that show wrongdoing, maybe suppressed environmental reports, stuff that's been hidden.
And once they have it?
Exfiltrate that data and deliver it to the world. That's their plan. Leak it.
Wow. Okay. That's ambitious and incredibly risky.
Absolutely. And this is where Alberto's conflict really comes into focus. He gets it. He sees the potential impact, the audacity of it all.
But he also sees the danger, especially given his own past experiences. The book, Log into Hell, suggests it wasn't pleasant.
Precisely. The memory of his own imprisonment, what the system can do to you. That's got to be weighing heavily on him.
So how do they try to convince him?
Yeah.
Sophia, presumably.
Yeah, Sophia plays a key card. She directly references his book, his experiences. She essentially says, you more than anyone understand how the system can fail, how it can crush people. You know what's at stake.
Appealing to his sense of justice and acknowledging his resilience. Smart.
Very smart. It's acknowledging his past trauma, but also framing it as a source of strength and ethical understanding, making him feel uniquely qualified.
But the risks remain huge. Government retaliation, corporate lawsuits, maybe worse.
Oh yeah, the narrative makes that clear. His freedom, maybe even his life, could be on the line. And seeing Elena's quiet intensity, her hinted-at past, and Mateo's, almost zealous determination, it all adds pressure.
Does he just jump in? Or does he hesitate?
He definitely hesitates. He doesn't just say yes. Instead, he starts laying down conditions, very specific conditions for even considering helping them.
Ah, okay. Like what does he demand?
It's all about discipline and minimizing risk. He
Yeah.
talks about needing rigorous methods, strict compartmentalization, keeping information separate.
Need to know basis.
Exactly.
Mm.
Redundancies, backups, minimizing collateral damage, making sure innocent people don't get hurt, verifying all their intel before acting.
Sounds like he's thinking like a professional operator, not just a hacker.
Completely. Multiple attack vectors, multiple escape routes, digitally speaking, and critically, an exit strategy. What happens after?
He's basically telling them, you might think you know what you're doing, but this is serious business.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
He gives them a stark warning, essentially saying, do you realize how dangerous this really is? The consequences could be huge, and not just for you.
How do they react to that? To him laying down the law?
Well, Alina has this powerful response. She talks about being tired of being consumed by silence, wanting to burn with purpose.
Yeah.
It's very intense.
Adds that sort of moral fire to it.
Right. Mateo's just like, yeah, exactly. Pure enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Sophia seems more measured, understanding. She basically says that with him, they might actually have a chance to succeed to illuminate the truth.
So the final moment, does he agree?
It's cautious. He gives this slow nod and says something like, all right, let's talk details. Show me everything you have.
But then adds a kicker.
Yeah. And then I'll tell you just how much trouble you're really in.
Classic Alberto, maybe. Realistic, cautious, but taking the step.
Exactly. It's not a full commitment, but it's definitely a step across the threshold.
Yeah.
The narrative ends it there, saying the first sparks had been struck, but the path ahead is totally uncertain.
Okay, so let's pull back and summarize this first encounter. It really sets the stage. You've got La Llama Violeta, this highly disciplined, tech-savvy group.
Yeah, using meticulous recruitment, operating from a hidden base, clearly focused on exposing corruption around really sensitive issues like water and the environment in Uruguay.
The methods seem sophisticated, combining digital intrusion with open source intel and maybe some social engineering.
And the risks are enormous, not just for them, but especially now for Alberto, given his past and the expertise they want from him.
So the core tension is now Alberto's decision. Does he fully throw in his lot with them, risk everything he's rebuilt for this cause?
That's the cliffhanger, essentially. His desire for justice, his belief that knowledge should be free versus the very real trauma and danger involved.
It definitely leaves you thinking, doesn't it, about, what individuals can do now with technology to challenge powerful systems.
Absolutely. But also, what are the lines? The ethical considerations when you're operating outside the law, even for a cause you believe is just.
And what kind of courage or maybe recklessness does it take to make that leap? That's something to chew on.